So, good afternoon, my dear students. So, in this third lecture, under the biological aspects, we'll discuss mainly about the skin flora, skin pH, moisture content of the normal skin, then types and skin problem. So, in the previous class, we have already discussed about the structure of skin. That is, skin is made up of three layers: epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. Then again, epidermis is made up of five layers: stratum corneum, stratum lucidium, granulosum, spinillosum, and germativum. Okay. Next, in the last class, we already discussed the functions of the epidermis. Okay. Then various function of skin we have discussed. Then we have discussed about the dermis. Now, dermis consists of mainly the fibroblasts. Then they have sebaceous glands, sweat glands, hair follicle. Along with this, there are collagen elastin fibers, and then this layer is supplied with blood vessels as well as nerve supply, and so. And rest is various type of appendages which are present in the skin are like sweat glands, sebaceous gland or oil glands, hairs, hair follicle, and nails. So that is, you must be knowing the complete structure of the skin. So all these hair appendages, they are found in the middle layer, that is dermis. Okay, and from this layer they protrude, especially here they protrude out through epidermis at the surface of the skin. Now we have already talked about the sebaceous gland. They are the oil glands. They have tiny opening into the surface of the skin or onto the surface of the skin. Tiny duct which discharge all the sebaceous secretion or sebum at the surface of the skin. Okay. Now these sebaceous glands, they are the part of pilosebaceous unit. Now there is with respect to acne, a skin problem, acne, this particular the structure as well as the that is structure of this sebaceous gland is very important. Why? Acne, they are basically caused because of the obstruction of this tiny opening duct, or we can say obstruction in the pilosebaceous unit. So if there is obstruction in this particular unit, what will happen? The sebum, whatever is being secreted out through the duct, it will remain inside there, and it will be collected inside beneath the skin. Okay, so these sebaceous glands, they are the part of pilosebaceous unit, and they play a very important role in case of acne. Next, sebum is basically made up of triglycerides, fatty acids, wax esters, and cholesterol, etc. Okay. Next is about the sweat gland. So in this diagram we can see beside sebaceous gland, sweat glands are also there. Okay, the main purpose of sweat gland is to secrete sweat on the surface of the skin. Okay, so again the sweat glands, they are of two type. One is eccrine gland and the other one is apocrine. In the diagram you can see eccrine and apocrine. Okay, so merocrine glands, they are the eccrine gland, and apocrine sweat glands. Okay, so These eccrine glands, basically they are found, they are more in number as compared to apocrine gland. Okay, and uh, uh, whereas apocrine glands, they are mainly, they function mainly at the age of puberty. Okay, now if we talk about the secretion of eccrine, it contains 99.99% of water. Then it contains NaCl, vitamin C, antibodies, dermicidine. This is a particular protein, antimicrobial protein. Okay, and then metabolic waste. So, like urea. Okay, this is the content of sweat. So sweat, basically it secretes from sweat gland, or sweat glands, they secrete sweat. So if we see the structure, it is a simple coiled tubular gland. Secretory part lies coiled in the dermis, and the duct extend to open in a funnel shaped pore at the skin surface. So we can see in the diagram also that it is a coiled tubular structure which secretes or which have a duct which extend to the surface of the skin, and through this duct, sebaceous gland, sorry, sweat gland, they just discharge sweat at the surface of the skin. Okay, so and we see the pH of the sweat, it is near about 4 to 6, that is, it is in the acidic range. Okay, and main function of sweat gland is to regulate the temperature and prevent overheating of the body. So thermoregulation is the main function of the sweat gland. Okay, so we can say the two type of glands are there: sebaceous gland and sweat gland. Again, sweat glands, there are of two type: eccrine and apocrine. So these are eccrine gland. In this also we can see the two different type of glands: sebaceous gland and sweat glands. That is, eccrine glands, through the sweat pore they discharge the sweat. So everybody is able to understand all these things. Can you hear me? So next is apocrine sweat gland. So approximately 2000 number of apocrine glands they are found. They are larger than the eccrine gland. In this diagram, you can see the purple one is your eccrine, and red, again the tubular coiled structure, they are the apocrine glands. Okay, so they tend to lie deeper in the dermis and duct empty into the hair follicle. So they just discharge their content through the hair follicle opening, or we can say pore that opens along with the sweat sebaceous gland. Now, if we compare the content which is being secreted by apocrine gland, so apocrine gland, they secrete slightly thick secretion as compared to the eccrine. Now, eccrine gland, they secrete maximum the water, NaCl, and whereas here they secrete some fatty substance, proteins, and along with sweat. Okay, so just because of these substance, fatty substance and protein, the content or the sweat produced by apocrine gland, they are viscous, as well as sometimes it is having specific smell. Okay, so it is usually milky or yellowish color secretion. Then sometimes the bacteria, they reside in the body, or we can say the residential flora, They decompose this fat content or fatty substance and protein, and because of this, the odor is generated. Okay, so we all know that we have already discussed in the last class that skin they have flora, or we can say this residing microbes they are there in the skin. So microbes generally they decompose the fatty substance present in the sweat, the sebum and all that. So because of that, sometimes a specific smell is generated. Okay, so what we call it as a bad odor. Okay, so few of the individuals they have stingy smell, whereas the other they do not have. Just it depends on the content of the apocrine gland. So just to overcome this bad odor problem, we use deodorants and antiperspirants. Okay, so that we'll be discussing in the coming classes. Okay, so apocrine glands they secrete uh, a liquid which contains sweat. Along with that, fatty substance and proteins they are there in the secretion. So basically, these glands they function at puberty. So next, specialized apocrine glands, they are there. Um, Cereminous gland which are present in the ear. Okay, lining of external ear canal, they are there. Main function is to produce a thick bitter substance called earwax. Okay, and then the mammalian glands they are also the apocrine glands. Okay, which secretes milk. So the last layer is hypodermis. We have already discussed this thing, that is they contain adipose tissues, fat cells are there in this. Okay, next we'll discuss about the moisture content of normal skin. Now, normal skin generally have up to 80% of the moisture content, especially in the epidermis and dermis, and up to 10 to 30% of moisture is present in stratum cornea. This is the condition when we are talking about the normal skin. Okay, now water present on the skin, it it travels, or we can say it travels across the skin. So water has two options to cross the skin. Like first one is through active transport by sweating through sweat gland, or secondly it can be because of passive diffusion through the horny layer. Now in the diagram we can see there are four different ways shown for the moisture travel, or for the transportation of moisture. A is into the skin through the uh, humid environment. Okay, then B is across the skin, that is from the deeper layer of the skin to the surface of the skin. That is the B path. It shows the transfer of moisture from the deeper layer to the surface of the skin through sweating. Okay, then this C is there. C is water supply from the dermis to the epidermis. Okay, and D is the sorry D is the transepithelial water loss. Okay, so that this particular mechanism is passive diffusion through the horny layer. Okay, now in this diagram it is shown that B is much greater than D, that is B sweating. Now what we can say here is the moisture content is transported across the skin by two ways. One is through sweat glands and the other one is through TEWL, that is transepithelial water loss, which is a passive diffusion. Okay, so what happens as such we have already discussed, like in epidermis there is no blood supply, whereas in the dermis is supplied, they have blood vessels, so all the nutrients, oxygen, all they are supplied to the dermis through the blood vessel. And the second thing is water also diffuse from the bottom to the upper side through various mechanisms, basically through passive diffusion. Okay, now, why it happens, why this process is taking place? The main reason is just to keep the skin hydrated. This process take place. Now, if our skin is not hydrated, what will happen? It will lose its elasticity. Whatever the elasticity, softness, what we are observing is just because of the level of the moisture. Okay, if the level of the moisture will reduce, your skin will become dry, it will become flaky, it will lose its softness, it will lose its nature, whatever the elasticity is there. Okay, so it depends on the moisture content. Okay, so if we study the physiology of our skin, we will see that the moisture travels from the bottom of layer of the skin to the surface of the skin. That is from dermis to epidermis, the water it travels. Okay, so is it clear to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, in this slide, I have shown the transepithelial water loss. So, you can see the water droplets through the arrow. It is showing that water is coming out from the outermost layer, epidermis. Okay. So, in the normal skin, there is a continuous movement of water from the deeper layer towards the superficial layer where the water eventually evaporates. Okay, so this type of phenomena, this is also called as transepithelial water loss. It takes place through diffusion, and this is invisible to our eyes. Now, if skin is damaged because of any kind of agent, say physical or a chemical agent, then what will happen? This particular phenomena will increase. That is, the water loss will increase. The transepithelial water loss will increase. Okay. So again, what is necessary for maintaining the flexibility? Okay. Otherwise, skin will become dry. It will lose its ability to stretch, and it will cause the cracking or a crack or peeling will be there. Okay, now we have already discussed the process of desquamation and keratinization, where the cells they are produced at the basal layer, and through the process of cell growth, migration, and shedding, every time a refresh, or we can say a new layer of epidermis is formed. Okay, this is a natural process, but it should take with sufficient time, or it should happen with sufficient time. Okay, now what happens sometimes, just because of lack of moisture or because of some physical or a chemical agent, when the uh, skin is having some abnormal, or when the skin it shows abnormal behavior, then what happens, there is a faster peeling, and when there is a faster peeling, then the rate of cell production, rate of cell growth, migration and shredding, all this is accelerated. Accelerated means the same thing will happen, but it will happen in slightly more rate. So that is, it will happen in a very abnormal way. So now this phenomena can affect the normal behavior of the skin, like it will not give you a better barrier action. So the barrier action will be hampered. Okay, then the other skin say skin function will not be performed that easily. Okay, so that means the moisture content, it plays a very important role. Okay, and you must have heard about the eczema and all that. These are the skin disorders uh, where we can see the peeling of the skin, flaky skin is there. So there are several reasons of the eczema, but what we can see here is there is a excessive shredding of the skin. Okay, so the eczema is one of the abnormal condition which is found in the skin. Okay, next we'll discuss about the skin flora. So in the last class we are discussing about it, but now we'll discuss it in more detail. Okay, so the human skin is continuously inhabited by many different bacteria and fungi. Um, in a healthy individual, that is they reside in our body in healthy individual, especially in the skin. Okay, so if we talk about the skin flora, it can be of two types: residential flora and transient flora. Now what is residential flora? It consists of microorganisms residing under the superficial cells of stratum corneum. Okay, most common bacteria are like cornybacterium, streptococcus, staphylococcus, then your propion, propionibacterium. All these, they are the different species which are found in as a residential flora. Now, what is the basic purpose of residential flora? Residential flora, they protects the host from pathogenic bacteria. Okay, so actually these residential flora, they are involved in maintaining the pH of the skin. If if this flora is disturbed, then the pH of the skin will also be disturbed. Okay, and again then skin will be exposed to different type of pathogenic bacteria and can be infected. Okay, next is transient flora. So transient flora is a temporary skin flora referred to as a microorganism that transiently colonize in the skin, or they live for a short period of time in the skin. So bacteria, fungi and virus which reach the hand or by direct skin to skin contact, they cause transient flora. Uh, they may be non-pathogenic or pathogenic microorganisms in the transient flora, depending upon the what we touch. Okay, so transient flora depends on the condition where we are staying and what we are touching. Okay, now, if the residential flora is disturbed, transient microorganisms can colonize, proliferate, and produce disease. So that means for skin well-being, what we need is residential flora is important. They will not allow to grow other pathogenic bacteria. Okay, so in this figure we can see what we can do is we can reduce uh, the visible dirt by hand washing. We can reduce the transient flora by hand washing, and with a hygienic hygienic hygiene, we can maintain the transient flora. with the help of surgical hand antiseptic, we can overcome the transient as well as residential flora. Okay, so next slide is showing the difference between residential and transient flora. Okay, so residential organisms, they are found in the deep layer of the skin, whereas transient flora, they are found in superficial layer of the skin. Then residential flora, they are permanent part or permanent flora of the skin, whereas transient, they are temporary flora or temporary organism of the skin. So if disturbed, then residential flora can be re-established, whereas um, usually transient flora, they are not re-established. Okay. So residential flora can be removed by routine hand wash. Sorry, residential flora cannot be removed by routine hand wash, whereas transient flora can be removed. Okay. Now, residential flora, they are not involved in, they are not associated with the transmission of infection, whereas transient flora, they are associated with the transmission of infection. So this much is clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next, we'll talk about the pH of the skin. So, the normal pH of the skin is about 5.4 to 5.9. That is slightly acidic in nature. Okay. Now, why the pH of skin is like this? Basically, just to maintain the residential flora and their barrier function, the pH of the skin must be maintained slightly acidic. Okay. Next, we'll discuss about the type of skin. Okay. So the skin can be categorized based on gender, color, UV sensitivity, vulnerability, oiliness, healthiness, and other ways. So it can be also classified on the basis of hairs, non-hairy skin, and hairy skin. Now, first we'll discuss the type of skin based on the sensitivity of ultraviolet light, or the classification based on phototype. Okay, so Fitzpatrick was the first who classified skin in 1975 based on how the skin behaves to UV rays or UV radiation. Okay, so based on the UV radiation exposure, skin, they are classified into 6 different categories. Okay, now this correlation is based on the color of the skin and its ability to tan and or burn. Okay, so few of the skin, they tan easily, whereas few of the skin, they burn very easily, and few of the skin, they are hypersensitive to UV rays, whereas few are not. So we'll just discuss this type of classification of skin based on phototype. So type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, 5, and 6. There are 6 different type of skin. So in this diagram, what we can see here, the different skin types based on Fitzpatrick scale. Okay, so this type of mainly this classification is based on the melanin. Okay, so epidermal melanin is more in case of 6 and least in case of type 1 skin. Okay, so in the diagram it is very clear. Type 1 skin melanin content is very less, whereas in type 6 skin melanin content is maximum. Okay, now again, in the diagram we can see type 1 skin is UV sensitive, whereas type 6 skin is UV resistant. That is, as the epidermal melanin content is increasing, it is giving more resistant to UV rays. That is, the person who is having type 6 skin is more resistant to UV rays, whereas the person if is having a type 1 skin, it is least resistant to the UV rays. So please tell me whether you people are able to understand this particular thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now in this we can see the more the skin is UV sensitive, it is um, more more it is showing the tanning process, whereas uh, sorry, that is type 6 skin, it is more tend to uh, tan, but it never burns, whereas type 1 it burns and it do not taints. Okay, so this we'll discuss in further slides, but one more thing, you can see the graph also. The graph represent that type 1 skin is uh, more sensitive to cancer also, or we can say the possibility of cancer is more in case of type 1 skin as compared to type 6 skin. Type 6 skin is uh, less prone to cancer. So tell me whether this is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next. So again we'll discuss about the type of skin. So type 1, they have red blonde hairs, blue eyes, and they these type of say type 1 skin, they never taints and burns very easily. That is, type 1 skin, they have a more tendency to burn rather than tain. Okay, but they are extremely sensitive to sun. If we talk about type 2 skin, type 2 skin, they are fair skin, red blonde hairs, blue hazel and green eyes. These skin are very sun sensitive and they are easily burned, but they show minimal tanning. Okay, then type 3 skin, they are cream in color or cream white to yellowish olive skin color. They are fair. Then brown sandy hairs are there. Okay, in the individuals which are having type 3 skin. Then this type of skin, they are sensitive to sun. They gradually tense. Okay, and sometimes they burn. Type 4 skin is a dark brown skin, dark brown hairs, green hazel eyes or brown eyes. Okay, now this type of skin always sting and they show minimum sun sensitivity. Okay, then type 4 skin, they are generally dark brown skin. Okay, they are rarely burns, but they have uh, tendency to tan. Okay, so they are sun insensitive. Okay, and last one, the type 16, deeply pigmented black skin. Okay, and this type, they are insensible to sun and they always stain but they never burn. So same thing is displayed in this particular slide also. So uh, you can, this is a briefly the same thing they are shown in this. So type 1 always burn but does not stain. Type 6, they never burn but always stain. Clear to everybody?
जी मैम.
Now next is the classification of skin type based on FDA. So FDA gives a similar type of classification as it is given by Fitzpatrick system. Okay, so in this also we can see type 1, type 2, type 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, and they have mentioned the color of the skin and the reaction to the exposed sun. Next, we have already discussed this thing that is skin type based on hydration state and lipid content and degree of oiliness or degree of dryness based on the number of pores. We can classify skin as normal skin, oily skin, dry skin, and combination skin. Beside this, there is sensitive skin also. So normal skin has an equal balance of water and oil. Uh, it is not too oily and it is not too dry also. It is structurally and functionally balanced. It has fine pores. It is smooth and well supplied with blood. Okay, and very few imperfections are there in normal skin, oily skin. Now, this skin has enlarged pores. Now, why they are enlarged pores? Because in this sebaceous glands they show overactivity. Okay, because of overactivity of sebaceous gland, the skin is shiny. Okay, oiliness is visible on forehead, nose, chin, etc. Okay, now, oily skin usually onset on puberty, can be seen on onset of puberty. Why? Because at the age of puberty, the sebaceous gland uh, they become overactive just because of the hormonal say changes in the at the puberty. Okay, so uh, oily skin develops at the puberty. Other factors, or we can say other factors that contribute in the oily skin can be like genetic factors can be there, then hormonal changes can be there, stress, diet, or we can say external factors like cosmetic chemicals, cosmetic products, chemicals, UV light, and all these. So that is the reason behind the oily skin can be either genetic or some uh, extrinsic factors can be there. Okay, now main problem associated with the oily skin is acne, dandruff. Okay, so that is the individuals which are having oily skin, they are more prone to acne and dandruff. Next, dry skin. So, dry skin is usually scaly, rough, and dull. They have very smaller pores. The skin is characterized with less elasticity. Okay. Now, the problem associated with this kind of skin is it is generally such type of skin show premature aging. That is, aging is fast. Wrinkles and aging they both can be seen at early age as compared to the oily skin. Okay, now the environmental factors like humidity, cold weather, sunlight, all these they can produce dry skin. So these are the factors which produce or may cause the dry skin problem. Next is combination skin. So it is a combination of normal and oily skin or oily and dry skin. दोनों ही हो सकते हैं. So this type of skin tendency can be seen at T zone area, central T zone area, forehead, nose and chin. Okay, whereas the skin area like cheeks and hairs, they can, sorry, hairlines, they can be normal or dry. Last one is your sensitive skin. Now, it may be defined as abnormal symptoms like your burning, prickling, okay, pain, all these. So now sensitivity can be seen on the skin just because of chemical, physical factor, microorganism, or psychological factors can be there, or hormonal factors can be there. Okay, so chemicals such as we use different type of cosmetics, soaps, then polluted water. All these, they can be the main, can be the reason of skin sensitivity. Okay, then physical factors like UV light, then heat, cold, wind, all these can affect the skin. Okay, so another category. Next is skin problems. So now problems associated with the skin, they can be either dry skin, acne, pigmentation, prickly heat, then wrinkles and body odor. So this part will start in the next class. That is problem associated with the skin. We'll discuss in the next class. So just stopping here.